All right, we're back live here on the Rome Show. Don't know what happened there. I can promise you it wasn't the computer. My internet's been on this entire time. I just think that's technology at its finest. I have no clue. But we still have Rocky on the phone here. And the last thing we were talking about was the women's tournament and Gino Auriemma. And I think as the feed cut, Rocky, you were giving me a little bit of your insight on baseball and the Metropolitans. I just want people to get that thought real quick before we roll on to hockey.
Oh yeah, I was pumped. I was watching the Mets last night. Mania had a Omar. No, that's a Mets joke for those of you who are fans. He had no hitter into the sixth. He walks his second person. He's getting a high pitch count. So like, I don't know what's going to happen here if he gets his third out. Well, man on second base gives up a single, but Brandon Nimmo gets the outfield assist and throws the I can't remember who it was out at home plate, which was just an awesome play. Let's get pumped. Let's go score runs. No runs. Another loss for the Mets. So I think we were just talking about how the big players have not stepped up. Our starting pitching is suspect, and it would be nice to have both of those things turn around.
It would be very nice, and it would have been very nice if in the offseason we had done something to make both of those things happen. But unfortunately, we have not. All right, let's switch to something a little bit more exciting then, because we have a lot of time to talk about how bad the Mets are this year, but we don't have a lot of time to break down what's going on in hockey. And since we were last on the air, dog, there have been a few teams that have secured their spot. President's Trophy we've been talking about is inching closer to Madison Square Garden and some other things. How you vibing right now with the NHL standings?
I mean, it's actually kind of fascinating what's happening like across the board. And like if you just did like I was looking like, hey, if the playoffs started today, a couple of matchups that are just really as a result of what has happened over the last 2 weeks. But you've got the first round matchup looking like, if it started today, the Boston Bruins versus a surging Tampa Bay Lightning. And so you look at someone like the Bruins, who came off an extremely disappointing first round loss, to have to go face the perennial powerhouse, who in a franchise like Tampa Bay, who is essentially, you look at their run, like, I guess you would say, hanging on to their dynasty or still seeing if it's possible, right? Like that's a first round matchup. That's like, wow, that puts Boston in a tough spot. You've got the Leafs against the Panthers, who, for all intents and purposes, the Florida Panthers were in the Stanley Cup final last year. And the Leafs, who won their first round playoff series last year to only get disappointed in round two, a lot to prove. Austin Matthews have a 60-goal year. Like, I mean, those two matchups alone out of the Atlantic are enough to be like, this first round is going to be crazy. And I'll just stop there for a sec.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing for me that I find interesting is you don't have, at least this is maybe always hockey, but this year I really do feel this. You don't really have a team that's like, oh, all right, well, we got a good draw facing this team, especially in the first round on that side. I should say I wanted to say of the puck, but of the league. It's the truth though, up and down. It doesn't matter what number you are getting to get into the postseason. What am I looking for? Not ranking. Where you are seated. There you go. What seeding you have going to the playoffs. And I think that is why, I mean, to me, I couldn't tell you, Rocky. If the playoffs ended right now, if they end in a week and it stays similar, I really have no clue on who I think a favorite is to come out of that side of the NHL.
No, and then to your point, flip it over to the West, right? Like right now, Dallas will be playing LA. Okay, there's a 15-point difference in points earned throughout the regular season, but like let's look at it this way: like the Kings are young and they're like top 5, I think, in the league in goals against, and the Dallas Stars are seemingly a team that scores a ton of goals. So, you know, like, is the youth enough to stymie the Stars and give them 2 to 3 losses and beat them up? Because in round 2, you're going to face the Avalanche, which is a Stanley Cup winner from 2 years ago, and the Winnipeg Jets were a surging young team. So, I mean, so when you think about how hard it is and how hard it is to pick a winner, like to what you're saying, it's not just that the Stars, okay, yeah, they might have the easiest matchup in the Kings on paper, but like what the Kings can do to you in the first round could seemingly set you up to just get smoked in the later rounds. Like, and look again, I'll look no further than Florida Panthers, who by the time they made it to the final last year were so injury prone and so beat up that they just ran out of gas. And so for your team that's in the top of the point standing, a higher seed, home ice advantage, I mean, are you healthy enough? Can you win in such a fashion in round one that your people are healthy? And by the way, Edmonton Oilers versus Vegas Golden Knights. That's your first round matchup in the Pacific Division right now. I mean, that is going to be your former Stanley Cup champion and the best player in the league, head to head, all with something to prove. I mean, if you've got to get out of the first round healthy, and that's just not easy. Look at the matchup; they're crazy right now.
We are on the line with resident hockey player / expert Rocky Romanella. And so I really start to lean towards teams that have great defense and great goaltending when it comes to the postseason. And the aforementioned Florida Panthers that you were just talking about, and how the sizzle kind of went out last year a little bit, where as injuries and you can't predict that. They're not playing great down the stretch, Rocky, but they have great goaltending. So what would you rather? Okay. Would you rather be the Florida Panthers, who are floating their way a little bit into the postseason, but have 2 of the top 10 goalies in the league right now? Or would you rather be the Dallas Stars, who are on a 7-game winning streak, have 6 or 7 games left, are clear and obviously going to be a 1 or 2 seed on the Western side, but could be hitting their stride slightly early comparative to the important games?
Yeah, and that's a Jake Ottinger in goal for Dallas versus Sergei Bobrovsky in Florida. And I think the difference between Dallas and Florida is probably the injuries right now. Like, Florida has some injuries, like, right now. So that probably makes me more nervous than the goaltending. I mean, you could argue, hey, like, get your injuries taken care of today so that, like, tomorrow in the playoffs, like, you're set. But I mean, when 3 out of 6 of your D core is injured, and by the way, that's what's happened to the Rangers right now too. It makes you nervous. Like, do I get 100% defensive core, and do I get an 85% defensive core still laboring through the injury in round one? And then I look at how physical the first round matchup is going to be, and a Dallas Stars versus Kings. Like, I would think it's going to get pretty physical, just based on the youth of the Kings. And I think, like, for the Panthers, like, yeah, like, Toronto's going to bring the noise. The difference is like, I just don't know if Toronto's that tough physically, but they have Ryan Reeves. Florida is seemingly the toughest team in the league. So they're going to play a physical brand. And is that physical brand going to be the thing that propels them versus hurts them? So, I mean, for me, I'm going to take Bobrovsky over Ottinger, but from a matchup standpoint, I think it's the Stars that I think I would take the Stars over the Panthers if I had to pick one of the other.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. Okay, let's talk about the Rangers a little bit, because they obviously clinched their playoff spot. They lead the league in points right now, but you're talking about their D side being a little banged up. Jonathan Quick becomes the winningest goalie, U.S.-born, I should say, goalie in National Hockey League history. That was pretty cool. General overall thoughts on the Rangers heading into the postseason?
I mean, up until last night's game, which I think everyone kind of knew was going to be a tough one versus the Penguins, they have just played extremely impressively. And I think that when we first started doing hockey with Rocky a few weeks ago before the trade deadline, I talked a lot about their depth. And their third and fourth line scoring right now has just been something that, like, you can't not pay attention to, at least from my perspective. I watch every game, like that is cool. And, Jacob Trouba is back in the lineup. Ryan Lindgren is back in the lineup. Eric Gustafsson is skating, but still not back in. And, when you look at your depth at D, the guy that's taken on the minutes that has been kind of your odd man out all year has been Zach Jones, who has played incredibly. So, and then your trade deadline pickup of veteran presence, Stanley Cup pedigree, Chad Ruhwedel, also came in and filled in. So your depth at D looks great. Your scoring and depth on your forward lines is also not only just playing well, but they're producing points and they're producing goals. And then your best players are starting to get even more hot. So, seeing Alexis Lafreniere, like just on his probably his best 15 game stretch of his career playing alongside Panarin and Trocheck, like when you see, and that's your second line, and you see stuff like that, you can't not help but get excited. The hardest part about the Rangers is that your first round matchup is right now, it's against the Caps. And then after that, you've got Carolina, who has seemingly pulled every string the right way in getting Jay Gensel. And the fact that they're one of the probably best defensive teams in the league, considerably, like especially through the neutral zone. Plus, they've got that scoring prowess now that's just elevated them. I mean, it's going to be an interesting trip into the playoffs for the Rangers.
Yeah, I'm excited though, Rock. I really am. Like, I feel like they are poised and they have a really good combination of veteran presence and youth. And I just think when you have a combination of that, I was just looking at some of the statistics. I did not realize that this year Chris Kreider is having such a good overall season from the standpoint of he's scoring a little bit, he's assisting, but he's also plus 20 in the plus minus category, which I did not realize. I always feel like I've watched Chris Kreider and the negative has been if he's not scoring, he's also not helping defensively. And it seems to be like there's a good combination of him there. And then I'm going down and I'm seeing Rangers all over the place. And I got to imagine simple stat to correlate, right? If you can have more guys in the plus than the minus in the plus minus category, you're doing things well offensively and you're finding a way to create problems defensively. And I think that's what the Rangers are doing well right now.
Yeah, I think the hardest part about Chris Kreider is I don't know if he's making Mika Zibanejad better. And that's the thing you worry about. And I would think that Mika's strength through the middle at center is probably the number one reason why the defense on that line is a little bit better. But, I mean, up until the trade deadline, you've been cycling right wingers in and out of that line for the entire season because no one can seemingly play, with Kreider and Zibanejad. And I think if you watch the Rangers and you look at Kreider's points, you'll realize that I think almost half are either on the power play or the penalty kill. And his real strength for you is in special teams. And as you get into the playoffs, depending on how it shakes out, like he is either going to be a difference maker when it comes to special teams, or he could essentially be, someone that helps, maybe almost like a good big distractor, I would think, and I think that line is becoming more of like a distractor to the other team because of the Trocheck, Panarin, Lafreniere line is so firepower worthy that you're almost distracted by the Kreider and Zibanejad line. So if I'm the opposing team, I'm attacking. I might even attack that line to change the tide of the game because I need to shut down the Trocheck Panarin line, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Panarin's got 44 goals, 64 assists, 108 points this year. And by the way, the Rangers are killing penalties at roughly an 84% clip on the season. I think that's huge going into the postseason. All right, Rock, we are up against it here. Last point before we end the show.
Last point, like you've got 6 games. Go tune into the first round of the playoffs. It will be, you got to do it. And I think the first round of the playoffs is equal excitement to those who love opening day of baseball, right? Like your first weekend, like if I'm a Yankee fan right now, I'm juiced. If I'm a Pirates fan right now, I'm juiced. And like that level of excitement, now cross it your entire sport and the top 16 teams in the league. And literally you have no way to predict what's going to happen. Like tune in. It's going to be awesome.
It will be, and we'll be breaking it down here on Hockey with Rocky. Rocky Romanella, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always love being on the Rome Show.
We'll make sure the sad trombone doesn't happen next time as well.
Talk to you later.
Later. That is Rocky Romanella, everybody, as you can see on our screen, resident hockey player. We're sorry for the mid-show technical difficulties. Who the hell knows why, but at the end of the day, we made it work, and that's all that matters here on The Rome Show. I am Andrew Romanella. This has been a blast. I love being on the radio with the people. If you need to watch the show, what I'll do is I'll mesh the two together into one singular podcast. You can get that wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search The Rome Show podcast, as well as following us on social media are all very important things to do. Okay. After that, I don't know, wideworldshop.com, tickets.12ozsports.com, and tune in on Wednesday at 7 a.m. Until then, I'm Andrew Romanella, and I say peace.
Thank you for listening.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money, and we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.